Hi again guys, welcome back to another video, and this week we're going to be doing another top 10. So today we're going to be talking about something very close to my heart, and that is light gun games. They may be a dying breed these days, but oh my god, they were a classic back in the day. Just imagine being able to play an arcade game with a light gun in your very own home. Always will, always have been one of my favourite games to play, so let's jump into it. Here is my top 10 light gun games of all time. As always with my top 10 videos, these are in no specific order. They are just 10 of my favourite light gun games of all time. And as always, this is my list. It is very subjective. These are all games that either I have grown up loving, have a special place in my memory, or I just think are fantastic. So, that's a disclaimer out of the way. Let's jump straight in. The first game I want to talk about is Operation Wolf on the Mars System. I think looking back, this was probably the first light gun game I ever played in my own home, with a little bit of an asterisk to that statement. So I remember going down to Blockbuster and renting this game years and years ago when I first had my Mars System. I thought this looks incredible. Just looking on the back of the box, I thought this is going to be an arcade classic in my own home. The only problem was I did not have a light gun for the Mars System at that point. It's only actually this Christmas I finally got the Mars System light gun so I can play it the way it was intended. But this is the game that started my love affair with light gun games, albeit not actually with the light gun. Next up is a bit of a wild card entry. I know it's very early in the list, but this one is kind of related to the previous game. So this is Operation Warcade for the PlayStation 4 VR. I see this as basically a spiritual successor to Operation Wolf. It is literally exactly the same, but in VR and with today's graphics. Even on the back you can see it literally plays like you were playing it in the arcades. So we are talking about Operation Wolf from 1991, and this is from 2018. The graphics may not be amazing, the gameplay is super simple, but this is through and through a classic light gun game you can play on your PlayStation VR. Well worth checking out. We're going from the PlayStation 4 all the way back to the OG to the PS1 with Die Hard Trilogy. I seriously doubt you'll find many people who have not played this game. But it is not just a light gun game. Die Hard 1 is just kind of an action-adventure one. Die Hard 2 is the absolute bona fide classic light gun game. And the Die Hard 3 game is an amazing driving game. This was one of the very early arcade-style games that I really enjoyed. The amount of value you got in this game was such good value. Free, full games that had tons and tons of levels. And the sound clips from Die Hard just made this so much funnier. I think I actually played this game before I even saw the Die Hard film. So you can imagine after playing this and watching the films, you can kind of see it roughly follows it, except probably Die Hard 3. But this game is an absolute classic light gun game. It's tons of fun. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. But I'm sure if you're a fellow PS1 collector like myself, you've definitely checked this one out and added it to the collection. Once again, we are taking it all the way back to 1992 with Terminator 2, the arcade game for the Mega Drive. So this was actually a game I did play in the arcades. I remember playing on a 2-player cabinet, and the guns were massive. They were like two basically mini guns set up on this cabinet. So a friend of mine bought this on a Mega Drive. We were able to play it at home. This one kind of reminds me of the story I said earlier about the Mars System. Again, we did not have a light gun for the Mega Drive. I think the main light gun they had for the Mega Drive was the Menacer, you know, the giant rifle with the scope on, which is one I do need to add to my collection still. I think there's very few games that are actually supported by the Menacer, but this game is, and this is a really good game. I think, again, I played this before I saw Terminator 2 itself. So when this came out, I'd have probably been 8 years old, so that probably makes sense why I wouldn't have seen the 18 rated Terminator 2, but this is a really good port of the arcade game. It probably hasn't got as good a light guns as it does in the arcade. If you ever get to play this in the arcades, it is an amazing game, but this home version still is brilliant. Check it out. Do you like dinosaurs? Do you enjoy light gun games? Then you're gonna love Dino Stalker. Just imagine Jurassic Park but with light guns. And no, I'm not talking about the Jurassic Park arcade machines, which are absolutely incredible. So this is Dino Stalker made by Capcom, a light gun game that supports the G-Con 2, and you basically investigate an island and kill a lot of dinosaurs. This one also has a little bit of a kind of roaming aspect to the game. It's mainly on rails, but you do have a bit of movement, and this one is pretty crazy. Especially for the PlayStation 2, the graphics on this are actually really, really good. I don't know if you can see on the back there, but the dinosaurs look really cool. So definitely this is one to check out. This is one that doesn't really get a lot of the action, and people don't really hear as much about this game, but it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you enjoy light gun games, but even more so if you really want to play a light gun game where you shoot dinosaurs. We're going from dinosaurs to my other favourite thing to shoot other than Nazis, and that is zombies. With Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles, this is a really good Resident Evil game with light gun controls. It is one of the later ones on the Wii, but guys, the Wii has got some incredible light gun games. It was pretty hard not to just pick Wii light gun games for this list. So this game is actually set during Resident Evil 2, which in my mind is my favourite Resident Evil game of all time. This one kind of fills in some of the bits you don't see in the game. This is a really, really cool game. It definitely has that Resident Evil 2 vibe. It's dark, there's lots of enemies to mow through, and it is Capcom at their best. I really don't know why Capcom don't make more light gun games. They're absolutely fantastic at it, and we need more light gun games in our life. When we talk about arcade light gun games, we cannot not talk about Time Crisis. I think between Time Crisis 1 and 2, they are the light gun games I have played the most. I have actually recently completed Time Crisis 2 in the arcades in the past year. It's one of those games I just do not think gets old, so I had to put Time Crisis 2 on this list. It is such a good port, and using the G-Con 2 on your PlayStation 2, you could have multiplayer. You and a friend could blast through this game in just about an hour, but I tell you what, when you got good at it, you could smash your way through this game. I think I've actually finished this without even losing one life. I became obsessed with this game, doing so many run-throughs. It is everything that is good about arcade light gun games. There's action, there's tons of enemies, and there is some dodgy acting. It is an absolute classic, especially if you're a PS2 collector. Back in the day when I used to go to the arcades, there would be two machines I'd be looking for. One would be Time Crisis and the other would be House of the Dead. So there is a slight problem with this. The original House of the Dead game is becoming incredibly expensive. It is only available at the time of recording this video on the Sega Saturn, but it is coming out soon on Nintendo Switch. So if that had been out, that would have made the list. But my favourite House of the Dead game is probably House of the Dead 2. And the best way for the money to play it for me is to play the Wii version, which has House of the Dead 2 and House of the Dead 3. As I said earlier in the list, the Wii is fantastic for light gun games, and this is a really good port of both of these arcade games. I cannot wait for the remake of House of the Dead to come out, and I'll be playing through these ones many times again before that day comes. I would also like to take this moment just to point out I would have really also liked to have put House of the Dead Overkill on this list. If you have not played that game, it is an experience. I recommend it. You can find it on the Wii super cheap. Just be prepared. It is an 18 for a reason. There is a lot, and I do mean a lot of swearing. I think it does actually have the world record for the most F-bombs in a game for the length of it. It's about an hour and a half long, and I reckon there must be 300 or 400 uses of that lovely F word. When we talk about playing light gun games at home, we have to talk about Silent Scope. This was a game I never would have thought would have moved into the home market. Just when you look at the machine, it literally has a full-size sniper rifle you need to use, but they did it. Those crazy fools, they did it. They brought Silent Scope into the home. So this is the Xbox version. I also have a boxed PS2 version. There is a specific reason though why I prefer the Xbox version. I'm going to explain that now. I'm just going to cut away. So this is the light gun, and this is the reason why I love it on the Xbox slightly more than the PlayStation 2. That is because this light gun is also usable with House of the Dead 3. So if you haven't played House of the Dead 3, kind of the difference with that one from the other games is that you have a shotgun as your main weapon. So when you take the sniper rifle apart, it actually has a pump action shotgun built into the light gun. Literally, you can pump to reload rather than pointing away from the screen. This is a really cool way to play House of the Dead, and it makes it feel so much more immersive. So as I said, you can play Silent Scope in your home, and look at the size of this rifle. It literally has a scope you can look down to aim, and this magnifies through your television. This light gun is absolutely insane. I think in my eyes it is probably my favourite light gun game ever made, just because of how absolutely absurd it is. Silent Scope though is definitely a game that it takes a lot of getting used to. It is not like Time Crisis or a game like that of just blasting away. You have to take your time, line your shot, take a deep breath and pick your targets. All of this when you're against a time limit. It is tough, but being able to play this arcade classic in your home is worth the money. There was only ever going to be one game that could top this list, and that is the OG Time Crisis for the PS1. So this was a bit of an item that I really was a white whale for a long while. This is a complete in-box version with the G-Con 45, and this game, need I say more, Time Crisis on the PlayStation 1 is a bona fide classic. It literally took the arcade. You had pretty much the exact same gun with the iconic G-Con 45. You could play this game at home and you didn't have to keep pumping that money in. That's what the arcade light gun games were always about. They were trying to take your money. Let's not gloss over that fact. So you could buy this at home and you decided when you stopped playing rather than your pockets. But this is an absolute classic. So pleased to have this complete in the box, and it is probably my favourite light gun game of all time. There we have it then guys, that was my top 10 light gun games. And it is a bit of a sad list because basically in this day and age it seems like we are seeing light gun games very quickly dying out. That's because using the technology for most light gun games, they will not work with today's 4K flat screen TVs. It was kind of with the death of the CRT TV that we started to see the death of the light gun game. I know there's a few being supported on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, such as Time Crisis and the Cabela's games, but with the announcement of House of the Dead coming to the Switch, maybe we can see a bit of a resurgence. So it might be up to you, Nintendo. You might have to be the ones that bring light gun games back into this world, and please, please do it for me. Everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this list. Remember, these are very subjective. There is a vast library of light gun games to look back on to pick for this list, and I'm sure there's some I've missed. So let me know what would have been in your top 10. I'm sure there's a few people screaming in the comment section right now saying, why have you left this out? Why is this not here? Also remember, these are games I have in my collection. Like I said earlier, I would have loved to have put House of the Dead for the Saturn in, but my pockets are not deep enough for that game at the moment. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Dan the Gamesman. And as always, keep playing the game.